What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Wide Body Nation. Demon 170s are having big problems, and you guys probably already know that. In my opinion, most of them have to do with poor oiling for what kind of car it is, and poor, call it ownership. I mean, yes, Dodge probably set these owners up to fail, but it's on the owners too. And then lastly, we'll talk about some things that are options and ways people can at least prevent their car from having catastrophic failure and trying to catch things early. So with that being said, you guys have all seen it. There are multiple Demon 170 owners, from Racer X to a few other people on the forums and across the dealership network, that are having big problems with their Demon 170s. And before you guys jump down my throat and say that I'm hating on one of them specifically, I'm going to just talk blanket about what can be done given the setup of the car. And I'm in my C8 Corvette right now, which is twin turboed, because this provides a great juxtaposition. This provides a great comparison about what Dodge should have done rather than what they did do with the Demon 170's oiling system. So let's talk about the Demon 170. From the research that I have done, the Demon 170's oiling system, the pan, the pickup, and how it actually oils everything that needs that oil throughout normal driving, idling, and of course going 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, presumably running low 9s into the 8s, which requires a very fast 60 foot. My Dodge Charger Hellcat over there has essentially the same oiling system that a Demon 170 has, which is problematic. You know, that car on a prep surface will go 0 to 60 miles an hour in high 2s, maybe low 3s as far as seconds go, whereas a Demon 170 chops an entire second off of that and probably does, 2 second 0 to 60. So the G-forces involved in that will slosh the oil from the front to the way back of the pan and throughout the motor with a relatively non-pressurized oil system. And you guys are saying, okay, what's the alternative? The alternative is in the C8 Corvette right here. And it's not because it's twin turboed. The alternative is a dry sump system. Yes, we could talk about if they redesign the Demon 170 system, but we'll talk about that in a second. Dodge should have given it a dry sump system, and I'll put a diagram of a dry sump system right here. Because they should have forecasted that one of the problems for these motors was going to be oiling under load or under G-forces. I think the Demon pulls like 2 Gs out of the hole or whatever crazy stat it is. And of course, when you're pulling 2 Gs, all that oil is sloshing in a big way when it is in a conventional oiling system, which is a pickup and a pan. One video I watched on the Demon 170s, which goes into great detail, and I'll link it below, it talks about how the Hemi setup, the Hellcat setup, which a Demon is a souped up Hellcat. You can't change my mind on that. It's a souped up Hellcat. It is a front pan oiling system. The deep part of the pan and the pickup are in the front, which is the worst for drag racing, because that means the pickup is going to be sucking air when the Demon launches under those heavy Gs. And heck, if you really get a good run in, that oil is probably going to stay towards the back of the motor the entire run. So not only is the pickup going to get starved, the suction tube that picks up the oil from the pan, but I mean, all of the engine oil in the motor itself is going to be forced, at least want to move more rearward, especially when it sees less pressure from less oil getting picked up. So in my opinion, the biggest thing Dodge should have done to not have this problem in the first place was do a dry sump system. Now, to my knowledge, Dodge has not done a dry sump system in a very long time, if ever. So obviously that would have incurred massive costs, whereas like Chevy, every single C8 Corvette, I'm not talking Z06, not talking ZR1, every single Corvette, this is a 2LT mid-trim from 2020. The first C8s that came out had a full-on dry sump system, and I've never had any oiling problems when this car was stock. The only oiling problems, which I will talk about later in this video because it goes into the preventative measures, the only oiling problems I've had have been with the twin turbo system because I have to have a scavenge pump and I have turbos all the way out the back in a very low location. So some of the drainage and the pumping back into the system has become a problem. So now, what have I seen with actual Demon170 owners? I've seen a concerning amount of them stick to the manual and not do a break-in oil change. If you're going to follow the break-in instructions, and I have the entire Demon170 addendum right here that all these Demon170 owners get, and one of the things that sticks out to me is that under no circumstances should oil change intervals exceed 3,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first. And if you are doing track driving or excessive driving, the intervals should become more frequent. Now, from what I've seen from some Demon170 owners is they've been really stretching that. Almost every car I own, other than my wife's RAV4, which is a Toyota 4-banger, I always do a break-in oil change. Sometimes dealerships think I'm crazy, but every time I take it to my shop down the road, TK Auto Works, he recommends that 1,000 mile break-in oil change even on these new cars. And it's not necessarily because we got to get that old break-in oil out. Oh, we got to get the new stuff in. It's going to be so much better. No. That first oil change is your first indicator, your first real indicator on how the car is doing. For example, if a YouTuber who I shall not name in this video because he may or may not get butthurt, if that person had done an oil change at 500 or 1,000 miles, he may have actually gotten an indicator that his oil was turning into milky green goop before he hit whatever it was, 2,500 miles or something way closer to the real oil change interval. You know, experienced racers, some people change their oil every time they go to the track. Some people change their oil at very specific intervals, 2,000 miles since they're running race fuel or E85. I mean, heck, I feel like I need to change the oil on my Charger, and I've only put 4,000 miles on it, and I'm running AMSOIL Signature Series 0W40 in that, and that's the recommended weight, but it is a very premium oil. But I took that car drifting, I've taken it to the drag strip, so Dodge says I should change it every 6,000, 6,500 miles. I like to change the oil in that car every 3,000 to 5,000 miles because, above all, I get to drain the oil. I get to see if there's any metal chunks in there, any shavings, any discoloration from coolant or from any other fluid that should not be in it. Water, coolant, any other funny business going on, because you see all the oil come out, you see it in the catch, whatever you're using, and you can just see, oh, oil is a little dirty, but it's good to go. It's not shiny, it's not glinty, it's not discolored, any of that. So, with these Demon170 owners who are just like, oh my God, my engine blew, it's like, well, yeah, what have you done to check that out when you had the first sign of it? If your Demon170 starts running 2/10, 4/10, sounding weird, 2/10 slower, 4/10 slower, starts sounding weird, starts not launching properly, that's the first indicator to go ahead and drain that fluid and do other things. So let's go to my C8 here. We already talked about how the oiling system should be a dry sump, and it's really just a front sump that probably gets starved. We already talked about what some Demon owners have been doing as far as potential neglect in maintenance for maybe not what Dodge says, but what a gearhead or someone who actually cares about their car would say. Third, so my C8 right now, I just picked this back up from Sissio Performance. This C8 is twin turboed. It's making about 1,100 wheel horsepower, and we are having a slight bit of smoke only coming out of, it's like a whitish smoke, coming out of the right tailpipe. Now there's 4 tips on this motor, and only one of those tips is experiencing smoke. The turbos were rebuilt, the intercooler was replaced, we just had the clutches replaced, there's catch cans on here. We had a lot done. It was retuned, the ECU was cracked. There was a lot done to this vehicle while it was at the shop. And it seems to be like there's a little gremlin where oil is maybe leaking past the seals, or maybe the catch can is too full, or maybe there's something going on in the motor itself. Hopefully not, fingers crossed. But Do you think that when I started noticing the smoke that I just took it to the track and drove it for 2,000 more hard miles? No. I've putted this thing around the neighborhood and taken it to one car show where I didn't get on it at all, just to see if it would dissipate, because maybe it was just residue in the exhaust. And now that it persists, the car is sitting here in the garage, I'm not driving it, and we are going to do the following to go ahead and diagnose what is going on. First of all, I'm going to remove the exhaust on the twin turbo just to make sure there's no residue in there that's just kind of like cooking when the car heats up, because that's usually the only time I see the smoke is after I've been driving for a while, maybe got into power a little bit. So it might be a heat related thing, but I don't think so. So we're just going to go ahead and do a basic inspection, make sure there's no leaks and make sure there's no pooling in the exhaust. And then obviously we have to figure out where that pooling is coming from. Number 2 is we're going to check all of the lines, the turbo lines, the feed, and the return. We're going to check the actual surge pump that pumps it back up into the entire dry sump oiling system. We're going to check the catch can lines, the PCV system, anything that has to do with oil that is easily checkable as far as lines, tubes, reservoirs, fittings. We are going to check that at the shop next week, because obviously if one of those is kinked, broken, twisted, misrouted, or maybe too long, too short, that is going to be a problem as well. And you guys see, I'm being deliberate here. I'm not just beating on the car and hoping it figures itself out because, oh, it's a new car, it should work. Next, if there is still no sign of where this is coming from, we're going to pull the plugs on the entire right side of the motor. And if those plugs look fine, we may pull the plugs on the left side of the motor. The twin turbo system I have is not an X pipe configuration. It is a straight pipe configuration. So the plugs on the left side, the spark plugs, should not be affected, but we may just pull all 8 plugs to compare and make sure everything is even. Obviously, if it's super light or super dark or broken, then we know we have an issue with the plugs, or if it's broken, the plug's the issue. But if it's running super lean or super rich or whatever, we know that maybe that cylinder, or hopefully not cylinders, have problems. So pulling the plugs, that's step number 3. And then number 4, which we're probably going to do number 4 anyway, is we're going to drain the oil out of this bad girl. If I drain the oil, I know Sissio Performance just replaced the oil a few hundred miles ago when they were going ahead and doing the rebuilding the car, the maintenance, the dyno, and everything. So if the oil has issues in it and it doesn't really look like brand new oil anymore, it has any issues with it, then we know, okay, yeah, something is up. And at that point, that's when I'd bring the car back down to them, or whatever it may be. At no point am I just out here YOLOing and hoping, oh, it's just going to work itself out, or, oh, like Chevy built this car great, or, troubleshooting 101. If you see a problem, start with the easiest fixes and then just chunk your way down into it until you get somewhere where you can then take action off of that. In my case, hopefully it's something I can fix around here in Tennessee near Nashville at a local shop that I trust, instead of bringing it all the way back to Sissio in near Atlanta. But I just thought I would use this car and my current oiling problems to show you guys that yes, the Demon170s may have a flawed oiling system as far as how capable the car is, as far as performance and G's and all that. But if your motor is grenading itself, there were probably signs. And with the multiple YouTubers that have had problems with their Demon170s, there were literally signs in their videos if you go way back. I mean, a lot of them talk about how the break-in procedure is this, that, and the other, and how they followed it. I mean, part of the break-in procedure talks about how you're not supposed to go crazy until about 1,500 miles. Not 500, 1,500. So, to me, that was begging for a 1,000 or a 1,500 mile engine oil change and other fluid check as well. I mean, these cars, when people drive these cars that hard, it's, mileage stacks up quick when you are beating on these cars, especially on a nice prepped track. So with that being said, that's pretty much the end of the video I got for you guys here. Let me know what you guys think. Protect your Mopar at destroyer1320.com, TrackHawk GPS.com for any make and model, GPS and kill switch. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys at the next video. If you love your car, do not buy one of these. These were great in the 90s, but it's 2024. This is what I use. It's called TrackHawk GPS, and the best part is it has a kill switch built in. To use the kill switch, simply open the TrackHawk GPS app, send the command, and now I have the key right here, foot on the brake, nothing. So even if someone had your key, they could not steal your car. But let's say it's you and you want to drive the car, simply go back into the app, disable the kill switch. It's that quick, you see green, and you're good to go. Now let's say that you forget to use your kill switch and someone does steal your car. Luckily, TrackHawk provides geofencing, live tracking, and trip history so that there is virtually no way your car doesn't get recovered. The best part is that we cover all modern makes and models, and we have a certified network of installers found on our website. TrackHawk GPS. Kill it, track it, keep it.